welcome into the CHGO White Sox postgame show. Coming to you live from our homes. I am Sean Anderson, your host of the CHGO White Sox podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_W_Anderson. Filling in for Herb Lawrence is our typical producer. And, it's fairly easy to run these StreamYard things. So he's producing and co-hosting today. Stephen Nicholas, how are you?
I'm good. I'm doing a little Swiss Army knife action today. This will be fun.
I thought you were going to do either a Vinnie or a Herb impersonation.
Oh,
you're very proud. I was about to say, you're very proud of both.
I'm still working on the Vinnie one. I got to get that one down.
You should talk to Vinnie in your Vinnie impersonation when he comes on later. Okay. So that's my challenge to you. Because honestly, I feel bad because we're not able to deliver to our guy Schwo. We didn't even pay this off on the 3rd. July 3rd has come and passed, and the White Sox are nowhere near 3.5 games back. And I do love how I took those couple days off, 2 weeks ago, and Herb was like, "Oh, Sean, you shouldn't even be near the comp." He's right here. Herb's taking a day off, and yet he's in the comment chat. So I'm just saying, glass houses and throwing stones, Herb. Glad to see everybody, though. And thank you for joining us here on the CHGO White Sox postgame show. Again, that's Stephen Nicholas. I'm Sean Anderson. Vinnie Duber will be joining us later on. And you can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Duber. He's our CHGO White Sox beat writer. He's got a brand new piece all up at allchgo.com talking about Zach Remillard. And we are here to recap the first half of the Chicago White Sox 2023 season. They finish at 38-54. They are currently 8 games back of the AL Central lead, where the Cleveland Guardians and Minnesota Twins are at 500 at 44-44. And the Sox end the 2023 first half on a 3-7 losing streak, or 3-7 stretch.
I mean, fitting, if you ask me. This has been the whole season so far. They have to be the Cardinals and the White Sox, two most disappointing teams this season, in my opinion.
Well, so you mentioned that before the break, and I don't want to completely just start jumping down your throat. So feel free to flesh this out. Why are the White Sox and Cardinals so similar? Because you wanted to talk about the game, apparently. The Sox lose today 4-3 in extra innings, and they scored 3 runs because the Cardinals can't play defense and can't play baseball. They're both very pathetic teams, but feel free to try to flesh this out because I don't know.
I mean, we have for the longest time there, the Cardinals scored all their runs in 1 inning. They had terrible defense, which led to White Sox runs. This is normally the other way around for the White Sox. Pitching was good. Offense nowhere to be seen. That's the White Sox, and not to mention that they spend a lot of money on Willson Contreras. We spend a lot of money on Andrew Benintendi. Neither one's performing. Andrew Benintendi doesn't even play today. And these teams are supposed to be competing for a division. Both are cellar dwellers instead.
Well, I like the Contreras and Benintendi.
Okay, I bet you did.
They both sign players that they have no idea who they are and who they're signing. Like, obviously, Pedro Grifol had a connection to Andrew Benintendi, but he missed the last 2 games because of his wrist. That continues to bother him. That broke last season and is still hurting Andrew Benintendi. He has 1 home run and ending the first half with 1 home run. I don't know if I've really hammered that point home enough. But Willson Contreras, we see him, again, allowing a pass ball and giving the Sox another run today. And we saw early on with the Cardinals that they didn't even know that he wasn't a catcher. Like, they were like, okay, we just signed you to an $80 million deal, but we're not going to have you play catcher anymore. Can you play left field? Can you play third base? We're going to have you DH. Oh, I guess we're just forced to play you at catcher. I like that one a little bit, but again, I think it's a little bit different because the Cardinals are the Cardinals. The White Sox are like, it's like, I'm trying to, I want to say that they're like garbage cans, but even then, the Cardinals throughout our lives have won World Series, plural.
Yeah.
Have always dominated their division. The White Sox are not that. The White Sox think they're that. Like, they have players like Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt who have been signed to $100 million contracts. Their guy, Jordan Walker, who started off his career as hot as Ted Williams, gets sent down after not reaching certain performance marks. And I see Melissa hanging out in the chat, and she was giving it to Andrew Vaughn. We're going to be talking about players who had stock ups and stock downs after the first half. But, Andrew Vaughn is a player that has been forced to make it work at the major league level, where the Cardinals, even though they were struggling, they saw Jordan Walker not meeting certain expectations, and they sent him down. And now, obviously, they've called him back up. But I don't know. I think that the Cardinals are losing their grip. The Sox have never had a grip.
I won't disagree with that. I guess this season, these teams are very similar. I mean, if you're arguing which is the better franchise, I don't think anyone's going to argue the White Sox have been better for any stretch of time. The Cardinals have consistently been for decades now a World Series contender. And if I had to put my money on which team's going to turn it around first, of course I'm going to put on the Cardinals. They're a world-class organization.
Yeah, and obviously drawing the comparison just because we see the two match up this weekend. Sox lose 4-3 today in 10, and they did win one, which hey, we'll take. They won on Friday 8-7. But the thing is, the Cardinals had a 5-0 lead, and they kind of blew it. And then on Saturday, the good old White Sox showed up, and they didn't score any runs. And technically, they really didn't even score any runs today. I mean, we even saw that Luis Robert smoked a ball and basically tried to create all the offense, and it got stuck in the wall.
I've never seen that one before. That was interesting.
Right. And then, he's able to score gracefully by the will of the Cardinals, allowing a pass ball. But, it's frustrating because it is one guy. It's Luis Robert Jr. And you can even look at the Cardinals too. Like, I would love Lars Nootbaar on this team. I would love Paul Goldschmidt on this team. I would love Nolan Arenado on this team.
Great.
Like, not all of these guys are falling flat, and I think Arenado might be banged up, so maybe there's comparisons to TA. But really, the White Sox should not have been in any of these games this weekend. They should have lost all three of these games. And what we have seen consistently now, I would even say since the Oakland or since the Los Angeles series, we are really seeing this team, I think, fall apart. They had those two good games at the end of the Angels series, but that West Coast trip is really, I think, just taken the wheels off of this team completely. We hated the way they played in Oakland, and ever since they've returned against Toronto and St. Louis, they've just been completely disappointing in the effort department, in the what we're going to prepare every day to kick your ass. Like, we'll talk about stock up and stock down. We could just say everybody, but we'll be a little bit more nuanced. But, I don't know. I can't look at the Cardinals and be like, that's what the White Sox should be. Like, the White Sox have no idea who they should be. The White Sox have no direction and no team identity of this is who we are on a night in and night out basis. And that's why they're 16 games under 500. I think the Cardinals, there's a lot of injuries and bad performances. They're a team that I think they could just turn it around in the second half.
I expect
not so much.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the nail in the coffin really for the season was that Oakland series. You can't beat the worst team in the major leagues. That was supposed to be the one that we're looking at. Like, okay, there's our break. That wasn't a break for the White Sox. When they lost that series, that's why I wrote them off for the season. And now we're really going to see. You mentioned what the White Sox are. Moving forward, I think they're just going to be sellers, and they're going to have to figure out what they are moving forward for 2024 and beyond. I mean, we've heard of Dylan Cease and Luis Robert as untouchables. Great. Those are two good building blocks, but they're going to need a heck of a lot more to actually turn this thing around.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think, TA shouldn't be off the market. Giolito, Lance Lynn. I mean, if somebody wants to piece that isn't named Luis Robert Jr., I'm listening. I mean, even if it's Dylan Cease, if the offer is good enough, I mean, we just saw him on Friday. I mean, they went down 5-0 because, he struggled to, be that Dylan Cease. And I would say his stock's down, but it's tough to be overly critical of that player. But I mean, where he finished last year, second in Cy Young, he's not that. I mean, just to start the conversation there, you want to start popping up these stock up and stock downs, because again, we can just say the entire team, but we can go player by player. And the first one I think you're throwing up here is Dylan Cease. Okay. We got Dylan Cease, and I would say stock down for Dylan. And it's just the expectations. We were expecting Cy Cease. We were expecting that slider to be this dominant pitch. And what we've heard from Herb basically after every game, early on in the season was just, again, it didn't seem like he had that feel for the slider. He didn't have the feel for that dominant pitch. And I don't really think that feel has come back to him. There was a little bit of a stretch there against the Dodgers, Texas, and Angels where it felt like it was building, and then it still started to unravel. He really hasn't cut down a ton on the walks, a walk per 9 rate of 3.7, where it was 3.8 last year. He just doesn't seem to have that next level punch out stuff that he had last year. And that's why the stock's down. Maybe it was an untouchable ceiling to ever reach again, and maybe we just had too high of expectations, but it seems like it's clear that if he's able to find that pitch in the second half, I mean, we can be talking about a dominant pitcher. I'm not really out on Dylan Cease, and I do think that a team could get crazy with an offer if they are trying to make that push and they think that they could find that for Dylan, like Baltimore, to throw that out. You know, if a team is looking for an ace, I still think that they could possibly see that in Dylan, but overall, I would say stock down.
Yeah, stock definitely down for Dylan. I mean, coming off of the season he did last year, we're expecting him to be that guy when he pitches. All right, we're guaranteed 1 win out of every 5 games. It hasn't really worked out that way. His ERA, I think, is sitting above 4 right now when he was hovering just around 2 last season. So he's been twice as bad if you want to go off ERA alone. The slider isn't as dominant as it was last year. I mean, maybe he has to ride another poem or something. I don't know what to say at this point. I'm confident he'll get better. He's a piece I want moving forward. But as of today, going into the All-Star break, stock way down.
Yeah, right. I mean, we were so disappointed that he didn't make the All-Star team last year. And now, I mean, he wouldn't even be my pick of a White Sox starting pitcher to represent the team. It would be Lucas Giolito. And why not go there? We did see a good outing from Lucas. There was no reason why the Sox shouldn't have been more competitive, I feel, on Saturday. Or sorry, not on Saturday. When did Lucas pitch today? What am I talking about?
Sunday.
He was good. Again, they didn't score any actual runs. I'm sorry. This team is just all the days are bleeding together. But 7 innings, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, and 5 Ks for Dylan. You talk about it being the final possible last act for Lucas Giolito. We've been hearing this, I mean, ever since April, ever since they hit that 7-21 mark, that Lucas Giolito, no matter where this team stood, they could have been in first place right now. And we could still be thinking as this might be one of Lucas Giolito's last starts with the White Sox. So we can say, if you got the graphic, did you already flash the graphic?
I did. I can flash it again if you'd
Stock
like.
up. No, it's fine. Stock up for Lucas Giolito. Another great, thank you. Another great outing for him. His ERA for the first half is going to finish under 3.45. And it seems like a lot of what we were saying, what people were saying were excuses last year, that the oblique injury that he suffered early on in Detroit from getting so amped up during the lockout and over lifting, it seemed like that wasn't a lie. It seems like he's healthy. It seems like he has his weight figured out. And it seems like Lucas Giolito is back.
Yeah, he's been one of the bright spots for the team this season. He's been the one guy in the starting rotation that when he's pitching, I feel really confident in. We've seen him carry a no-hitter late into a game this season already. Strikeouts are back up again. And he's doing it as a better pitcher than a thrower. Before, he was just relying on his changeup and he wasn't as crafty. Now with a little bit lower velocity, and it's ticked back up since last season, but his velocity is still lower than it was at peak form. He's found a way to be a really good pitcher and really elevate his game. Now, I think he could be a really good piece for the Sox to move. I know he's on an expiring contract, but his stock's up and his trade value is high right now.
Yeah, right now his numbers mirror his 2021 season, an ERA plus of 124 in both seasons, an ERA around 350 in both seasons. And obviously 2021 was a full year where he had 31 starts, but even his walk per 9, 2.6, he's just been able to locate his pitches. He's not afraid to use all 3 of his pitches as well. I mean, we've seen his changeup consistently be his least used pitch, and we never thought that would be that type of pitcher for Lucas Giolito. And I think what we do in 2023, and I think we've seen this with Sandy Alcantara. We've seen this with Dylan Cease. These guys that do rely on 2 dominant pitches, it really seems to be a setback and allowing hitters to be more patient. Like, okay, I can completely write off the slider because I think it's just going to be a ball, right? Like, what am I actually going to be doing with a slider that's, in the left-handed batter's box? Where Lucas, he's been able to be a 3-pitch pitcher. He has been able to consistently trust his slider, his four-seam fastball, and his changeup. And I think now we even see Lance, when he has all 5 of his pitches, the last 4 starts, when he's had all of those pitches, being able to locate in all of those quadrants, he's been a dominant pitcher. So the loss of velocity doesn't mean a ton to me because, again, pitching is pitching. I mean, if you put Greg Maddux in a White Sox uniform, prime Greg Maddux in a White Sox uniform in 2023, I think he'd be all right. I think he'd probably have an ERA under 350.
And we'd still lose his starts probably because we wouldn't score any runs for him.
Well, yeah, that's not his fault. So I do think that Lucas's stock being up is great for the White Sox because they're not signing him. Let's be honest, right? We can hem and haw about, they're not serious because they're not signing players. And, the last big significant contract they handed out to a pitcher was John Danks. All of that is bad, but I don't see it changing for any reason. I see Lucas Giolito walking out the door. And if he is, I think that they should trade him. I think he's probably going to get at least one more start, 2 more starts in a White Sox uniform. I think they probably take it likely to the deadline with Lucas. I think they probably try to, again, get as much as possible, which I think the White Sox think, hey, we got to make people sweat. So I wouldn't be surprised if Lucas is like a 3 p.m. A trade deadline piece. But hey, maybe the White Sox get what they want. They don't mess around and they make a trade. All right, we got time for about 2 more before we hit the break. So why don't you do two more position players here? And thank you to everybody hanging out with us in the chat. We got 86 people watching, so make sure you hit the thumbs up button here today. And we got people chiming in with their thoughts, like Albert saying the only player worth keeping is Robert, Berger, and Gonzalez. So 2 of those guys. Well, hey, Romy's on the 60-day IL, and our guy Jay Berger wasn't even on the opening day roster. So again, it just tells you a lot about being 16 games under 500. Stock up, stock down for Tim Anderson, and I think we could just sum it up by the last. Well, yes, we could just do that, but we could sum it up by the last at bat of the White Sox 2023 first half. 4-3 game, runners on third and second, 2 outs. Zach Remillard, the leadoff hitter, just bunted.
Oh, God. I knew you were going to hate that.
He was able to
move.
Such
a hard bunt.
He was able to move the guy from first to second, so great. But yeah, a hard bunt, and Paul Goldschmidt's running like a bat out of hell and tags Remillard, and Gavin Sheets is not able to advance. But again, runners on first and second and third, and there's a left-handed pitcher up, and Tim Anderson's at the plate. If you told me this during the World Baseball Classic, that the end of the first half is going to end Cardinals versus White Sox, Tim Anderson's going to have the ability to end the game with a runner on second, and Alessandro has decent speed, and he's going up against the lefty. I know that ball is getting gapped to the right center field, and he's driving in those 2, and it's ball game, and the White Sox are 5 games over 500, and they're in first place. But his stock's down. And not only is his stock just down a little bit, he is the worst player by F4 on the White Sox.
Oh, he's supposed to be our leader.
He is.
Yeah, I want to take you back to that World Baseball Classic. He's leading the team in
flush it moments.
Do you remember what Mike Trout said about Tim Anderson at the World Baseball Classic? The best opposite field hitter. What happened? To go from 100 to 0 the way he has, I don't know what's going on with this guy. It's a soft contact, weak grounders to second, over and over and over, striking out more than he has. I don't know what happened to him. I personally, I'm done with the Tim Anderson experience. I would trade him for nothing, but first decent offer I get, I'm probably taking it.
But then, no. Again, that's just.
That doesn't make any sense. I get it.
Right. But again, let's flesh it out, because again, we don't know what trade conversations are like. The situation just is, he's not the straw that stirs the drink anymore. He shouldn't be batting in the top half of the White Sox lineup. And I think, again, the only thing that you can sell now about Tim Anderson is just the fact that you could have him next year. And I don't know how significant that is to a team. And maybe teams could talk themselves into, oh, he's a big light player, right? When the moment's the biggest, that's when Tim Anderson's going to show up. They could go and look at his playoff numbers and possibly talk themselves into, him turning it around. I don't think the player is inspiring to anybody. So it's more of exactly what Jerry Reinsdorf said. You are basically at the will of your dumbest competitors. So if teams start driving up the price, and Tim Anderson seems to have value just because middle infielders are pretty bad, and he's got a good resume. I mean, he's got a good what's it called, a recommendation from Mike Trout. I think that it could be possible that Tim Anderson is moved for potential pieces, right? I don't think you're going to get a top 5 prospect for Tim Anderson, but I do think that it is possible that the White Sox could drive up the price of Tim Anderson, because again, baseball teams get desperate. And if you think that you can turn that guy around, or maybe he just needs a completely new, situation to clear his head. Maybe Tim Anderson's that guy that can turn it around. I think that there is that dialogue possible for TA, and Lucas Giolito is proving it right now on the field, and you're not even going to have to worry about having him for next year. So he's just a classic trade deadline rental. So like those two just make sense for me to move. Like it seems like they would have actual value to playoff teams. And outside of that, trading Berger or trading Vaughn, like who the fuck wants those guys? Like Tim Anderson, I get it. He has been the worst player on the White Sox, but again, there is what you said about Mike Trout. What is the league's view of him?
Yeah, I mean, he should still be viewed as a good player, but yeah, this is the whole back of the baseball card thing. That back of the baseball card isn't coming off this season. It's not going to. Not on the White Sox. He could really benefit from a change of scenery, in my opinion. And right now it's like he had those comments about if he wanted to be on the White Sox, moving forward after the trade deadline. He said he's fine with whatever. That doesn't sound like a guy that wants to stay on the White Sox, in my opinion.
No, I don't know if we can say that. I mean, I think that it could be possible that maybe just it was so easy when there wasn't pressure in 2019, and then when there wasn't fans in 2020, again, it was kind of easy, and the White Sox were winning, so it was easy to just kind of start with a good head of steam in 2021. But when the going got tough and there wasn't an actual leader in that clubhouse, like that Tony La Russa was supposed to be, I think that everything fell apart. And we just see injuries and, again, more leadership change. I think that could probably absolutely beat somebody down. I don't know if, Tim is looking to get out. And I know there was the rumors that somebody reported saying that, White Sox players are going to the front office to ask them for trades. Like, I don't know if I'm buying those rumors, but I do think that Tim would benefit from a change of scenery. Again, like that stuff is a lot of speculation and playing psychologist on people we don't know. Okay. So I don't know what Tim Anderson's thinking. Like he could be very thrilled to stay in Chicago. I mean, he's been here for a very long time. And maybe he when he signed that contract, he had the thought like, hey, I'll be here until 2024. So I don't know what's going on through his head. But again, we've just seen his numbers since 2019, 335 batting average, 322 batting average, 309, 301, 227. Yuck. Let's take a break. I mean, that sums it up right there.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed
games
it,
under 500 because Tim Anderson's just dreadful this year. Let's let you know about our friends over at Sunnyside. We didn't have a show on Fridays, so make sure, hey, if you're looking to end your weekend on a bang, check out Sunnyside on Fridays. They're really big into our Summerside our Sunnyside Summer Fridays. So make sure you're checking out Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, where your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping is to take place. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read. A place where all kind of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. And Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your summer. Again, when is the best time to elevate your summer? On a Friday when you're starting off the weekend. So again, if you're looking to just end your weekend on a high, end it this Friday with your friends over at Sunnyside. It's a one-stop shop for all your cannabis needs, no matter where you are on your cannabis journey. They have easy online ordering and in-store pickup, and they have great transparent loyalty programs, and that's called Sunnyside Rewards. So make sure you're signing up with Sunnyside, and when you buy, you get rewarded. Illinois' favorite dispensary from city to suburbs. They have locations at Wrigley Field to River North, Champaign to South Beloit, and we are always getting recommendations from our guy Herb for Mindy's, Good News, Cresco, High Supply, a lot of the high quality cannabis offerings that their bud tenders can explain and tell you about. Obviously, if you are an experienced cannabis consumer, just go place an order, pick it up, and they'll be really nice and friendly, give you a smile, and get you out of your way real quickly. But if you are new to cannabis, their bud tenders can explain all of the wonderful products that they have available at Sunnyside and their house of brands. Through August, head to sunnyside.shop and use code CHGO25 at checkout for 25% off your total order. They have one use per customer, so if you have already used it, you cannot use it again. But if you haven't used it yet, Head over to sunnyside.shop and use code CHGO25 for 25% off checkout. It's not stackable with other promotions, and that's not only for new customers. Anyone can use our code. So if you have gone to Sunnyside before but haven't used the code, please use code CHGO25 at checkout for 25% off your total order. Pick up everything you need to elevate your summer. Must be 21 plus or an Illinois Med card holder. Also want to let you know about our friends over at Lewis University. Very excited that they are on board because we have alums on staff like Jay Zawoski, who hosts the CHGO Blackhawks show. And that's why students are just like me, because they host podcasts apparently. But they might be like you, have full-time jobs, families, full-time sports fandoms. Maybe you're on summer break and you didn't love your first college choice. Why not head to a university that is 35 miles southwest of Chicago in Romeoville, and it is ranked as one of U.S. News and World Report's top tier colleges. And Lewis partners with numerous employers for tuition discounts and offers evening, online, and blended formats to help you balance work, family, and education, whatever you need to succeed. If you're looking to complete your bachelor's or master's degree or enroll in a professional certificate program, Lewis has the right program for you, just like they had the right program for my cousin Maggie, who was looking to finish up her nursing career and her bachelor's degree in nursing. She didn't love her first choice, had 2 years at her first choice, decided to switch to Lewis. And again, it's only 35 miles southwest of Chicago in Romeoville. She was able to commute from her home. She was able to save money. She was able to discover and get a degree from Lewis. And she is now building a better world as a nurse. And we are super proud of her. So learn more at lewisu.edu/YOU can do this. lewisu.edu/YOU can do this. Let's go to Vinnie Duber, our CHGO White Sox beat writer. Is out at the park. Sorry, I was reading your Slack message. You can follow Vinnie Duber on Twitter at Vinnie Duber. He's our CHGO White Sox beat writer. His latest piece is about Zach Remillard. So make sure you're checking that out at allchgo.com. Hi, Vinnie.
Hey, guys. How are we today?
We're all right. We're talking about some stock ups, stock downs in the first half. 16 games under 500 for the Sox, currently sitting 8 games back of the AL Central. I know it's been the main topic, just how has it been this bad? But now we're kind of at a resting place for this team at the first half. What's the talk? I know you talked to Lucas and Elvis Andrews. What's the talk as this team currently sits at 38 and 54?
Well, I don't think it'll surprise anybody that's been following what I've been getting from these guys, but they certainly still know that it's possible that something good could happen. But you're starting to get a lot more of those realistic comments. I think it was Lucas Giolito saying after the game today, like, yeah, we can still get hot, but we're going to have to get really hot. And that's basically what it comes down to. As we've been talking about, outside of the clubhouse doors recently, it sure seems like the sand has kind of run out of the hourglass for this team. I mean, they just hit. This is the worst they've been all season. They're 16 games below 500. That's the lowest they've been all year, or the highest, or whatever you want to call it. But it's the worst they've been all year, and that's unavoidable. And listen, they play in a very bad division. Certainly, math has not yet eliminated them from anything. But when you look at the amount of time that's left between now and the trade deadline, it would seem like this, I don't want to call it a nail in a coffin because that kind of gets overused, wrongly used sometimes. But this homestand, they won one time in 6 games. That was coming off of a series in Oakland where they only won once against the worst team in baseball. This is not looking like it's going to turn around, or I should say, certainly it doesn't look like it's going to turn around quickly enough for them to avoid losing some pieces off of this roster.
Yeah, Vinny, did anyone talk about that? The All-Star break is usually the unofficial countdown to MLB trade deadline. Did anyone say specifically, hey, this is what I'm thinking about going into the trade deadline? This could be my last start, my last outing with the White Sox?
Well, so Lucas was asked about that in a number of different ways at a number of different times, and basically said, if he starts thinking about it that way, that's going to throw him off. He said it's going to mess him up real bad, he said. So the way that he has been able to do what he's done this year and make himself, for better or worse, a trade candidate is that he has kind of been able to block everything out. I mean, remember, this is a guy who was coming off a real disappointing year for him personally last year. He spent all year last year probably seeing tweets and hearing and reading comments from fans online that were saying that they wanted him out of town and that he was done and that they didn't have any faith in him. He comes back and has a very good first half this year, and all of a sudden all the comments are trade him, get something for him before he leaves. He's stated now multiple times he wants to stay with the White Sox. He's got some really good loyalty, really strong loyalty to this organization. I don't know if that's the way it's going to turn out, but if he starts thinking about some of that big picture stuff, it's not going to allow him to keep pitching the way that he's been pitching, which is what he said. So what he said after the game today, he reiterated again after the game today. He wants to stay. He wants to be a White Sox, but as probably the number one guy that a lot of people are talking about in terms of what they can get something for here as they kind of slide into seller mode here they're expected to slide into seller mode here ahead of the trade deadline. That might not be super realistic to Lucas's point.
Well, we shift into that selling mode, we've been playing stock up and stock down, and we talked about Lucas Giolito and how his stock has risen just from last year, and how we heard all of the excuses from every player when they get injured. But we look at Lucas, and I think knowing what he went through in 2019, we saw a lot of mental growth, and he is such a mature player in person, and comes off as such. And it's not surprising to hear that he is just completely blocking it out and focusing on his job, and he's getting the results. I mean, we look at his numbers now under 3.50 ERA. That was under what 2021 was. His walk rate is very similar to that year. A lot of his stuff just seems to be returning, and it's great to see Lucas have that success. And you know, what team wouldn't want Lucas? Like, that's the thing, is I understand he's trying to deny that reality, but he seems like such a perfect trade candidate. It is your last year under control, and you are having one of the best years for a pitcher. Like, I mean, there's not a lot of guys with ERAs sub 3.45 and with playoff experience. And we've seen, you know, Lucas Giolito in the playoffs before. So it does really seem, if there's anybody to be traded off of this team, it's Lucas. And I know that obviously he can say that he doesn't want to be traded, but you know, if they are selling, like, it does seem like Lucas is clear cut one of the guys to go.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if you're just assessing possible candidates, of course, for every reason you just said there. I mean, you're trying to, if you're the White Sox and you are selling, you're selling for a reason, which is to bolster your chances at winning in the future. And if Lucas Giolito is going to go to free agency and might not be a part of this team after this season, how are you going to bolster your chances for the future? And that's getting something for him. Now, at the same time, White Sox fans, I would hope, you know, maybe I'm you know, old school in this regard, but I would hope that they're not just looking at the spreadsheets. I would hope that they, you know, have a little fondness for a guy who's been a really good face of this team at times, and a really good person to represent this organization, a guy who's pitched really well in a number of different seasons, and a guy who's out there saying he wants to be a part of this team. I mean, it's so much of the time the answer to these questions are, and they're not wrong, but are, oh, it's a business. We understand it's a business. I'll go where I need to go, and I'll do my best to, you know, whatever jersey I'm wearing kind of thing. This is a guy who is coming out and saying he wants to be a part of this. And I think if you were a fan, you would really appreciate that, and you would really be rooting for him to stay, because this is a guy who wants to be here, and a guy who's done nothing but represent the team in a really good fashion. But at the end of the day, this is a business. And at the end of the day, there's people who are paid to look at those spreadsheets and make these decisions in a far more calculated way than, hey, what's the best for the entertainment product kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I'll budge in, and then Steven, you can ask a question. I mean, I think that, you know, what we see from the comments, I don't think anyone really wants to see Lucas gone. I mean, even Dan saying, I wish they would pay him, but also starting that off by saying he gone. So, you know, we love Hawk. But I think it's just kind of clear when Lucas is this type of pitcher, the White Sox have not historically played this type of player. So I think people just don't want to get attached. Like, I would love to see Lucas Giolito on this team next year. If that means they keep him and then re-sign him, if that means they trade him and then re-sign him in the offseason, if he's on the team in 2024, I would be thrilled. But the last time we saw them go out and sign a player, a starting pitcher of, you know, over $50 million, it was Dallas Keuchel. And, you know, Keuchel, obviously a former Cy Young, but what was his previous year? I mean, he had a delayed free agency that really waited until June. He wasn't a guy that was coming off a Cy Young. Like, his stock was down, and he ended up delivering in 2020. But I just don't think that the White Sox are ever a team that likes to set the market on starting pitchers. And I think that Lucas, with how thin this starting pitcher market is this offseason, Lucas is going to get paid handsomely because he is a professional. And he knows this game and has understood this game because this has always been his future. I mean, he was a first-round draft pick, and he's always been understanding of, if I'm going to be a professional baseball player, I need to know how a professional baseball player operates. And, we're seeing that player shine because he didn't get overwhelmed after a bad 2018. He bounced back after being the worst pitcher in baseball. He had a setback in 2022. He's bouncing back again and shutting this all out and just going out and performing. And he was fantastic today, but he didn't get the run support. So again, just another frustrating day for Lucas because he is giving it his all and he's performing fantastically.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, we've seen, you mentioned Dallas Keuchel, John Danks as well. I think he got 5 years, 65. The Sox aren't really the type to open up checkbooks for starting pitching, especially on longer-term contracts. He's probably going to command $100 million or so. I don't think this organization is going to give him that money. So I'm on the mindset, if you're not going to sign him, you might as well try to get something for him while you can. Vinny, one of the buzzwords with Pedro at his introductory press conference and also when Benintendi was introduced was culture. What's your sense of the culture in the clubhouse right now with, the team, as you mentioned, 16 games under 500 going to the All-Star break?
I mean, from a clubhouse standpoint, it seems pretty typical to me. I mean, it seems like these guys like being around each other. It seems like these guys are doing work. It's not like it's, everybody's lounging around and not working on what they are supposed to be working on. It seems to me like they've got a bunch of guys in there who could, under the right circumstance, qualify as leaders. We're even hearing that about, you'd expect to hear that from about Lance Lynn or about guys, or even, Elvis Andrus, or even younger guys like Tim Anderson or Lucas, who have been talked about in the past. But now we're starting to hear about, that leader word being thrown around about Luis Robert Jr. when it comes to how he has been mentoring Oscar Colas here in the last, several months. So I don't think that there's a clubhouse problem. I know everybody looks at the record and says everything must be broken. They're doing it wrong. And maybe behind the scenes, that maybe that's the case, but I've gotten no sense of that. This is a team that's just not playing well, and it's certainly not playing up to its expectation level, be that the very high expectation level that were set among the fan base over the last few years, or just the high expectation level that was set within that clubhouse wall, and by this organization itself. I mean, this is a team that was in the beginning of this season saying that the expectations haven't changed, that they are still to compete at the absolute highest level. And what we're seeing is a team that has gone nothing but the opposite direction after what was described as the most disappointing season anybody had ever experienced last year. So obviously things are not working. Things are not going well. You don't have to do anything but turn the game on to know that. But if you're seeking a root cause in what something Pedro Grifol has been doing on a widespread basis behind the scenes, the work ethic of this team, or the feeling in the clubhouse, whether these guys get along, something like that, I don't think you're going to find it there. Now, maybe something can be tweaked by somebody else. And listen, that was what Pedro Grifol was brought in to do, right? Was to make the changes necessary to get this existing group to where they thought it could be. Maybe there is a big tweak to be made, but it really seems like everybody's bought into what Pedro has been saying, just like they were complimentary of what Tony La Russa had to say. So I don't think that, it's deaf ears in there or a bunch of bad guys or anything like that. They're just not playing good baseball, and they need to change that. That's what's been so surprising. Obviously, I think at the end of the day, when you point to why didn't it work for this team, you can point to injuries first and foremost. But now you got guys healthy, and it's like, just go play, do what you were supposed to do. And maybe it's backwards. Maybe it's because of the injuries, they didn't get the progression they were supposed to make. But I mean, the explanation for what's going wrong is on the field every single night.
Yeah, I mean, only one missing really is Moncada. I mean, that's currently the only guy that they are truly without. It's just the guys aren't performing. We talked about it before you joined. I mean, Tim Anderson, just by F4, is the worst player on the White Sox. If you told me that before the season, I'd be concerned. you mentioned it was the most disappointing last year, and that's what Rick was saying after the year about 2022. But then we even saw after the 7-17 start, we saw Kenny Williams make comments to the Sun-Times about not being in a good place, and he'd be lying if he weren't concerned. Is this a lower point than last year, being 16 games under 500 at 2023?
How can it not be?
Well, I know, but I mean, if it was most disappointing, that's
getting most are disappointing. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's the thing, is that it's not everything needs to be taken in context, and it's not just, oh no, the White Sox failed to live up to the hype. The White Sox last year failed to live up to the hype in spectacular fashion. They finished 500. They missed the playoffs. What in the world is going on? How could this talented team, do that? They're 16 games worse than they were at the end of last season. It's shocking. It really is. I mean, I don't think anybody, when the season started, I don't think anybody would look at this team and say, okay, if it's going to be worse, it's going to be that much worse. I mean, you could have been one of those folks who thought that last year they showed you who they were. This is much worse than that. And that to me is just absolutely surprising. I don't think anybody could have called this to be where they'd be at the end of the first half.
Well, and the video that you just sent, on July 4th of Rick speaking, he didn't say these words, but it just seemed like he's defeated. And, we look at the record by month: March and April, 8-21, May, 15-14, June, 13-13, July, 2-6. He said, since May, we've been the best team in the AL Central, but it's not good enough. We're only 3 games above 500. We need to start picking it up, and it's on the guys in the clubhouse to start winning. He said that, and they didn't do a lot of winning. So it just really seems like I know you hearken to the Cardinals, but I don't think the Cardinals are in this bad of a spot, Steven. Like this just seems like truly rock bottom for an organization that, again, had expectations of a parade. But we'll take a timeout and we'll talk a little bit more about the White Sox and what players might be around after the trade deadline. But feel free to do your first ComEd read.
Well, times are dark for the White Sox, but if you want to brighten your day up, the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities they serve, helping manage energy usage and energy bills now and into the future.
How long did you think of that one for?
About 3 seconds. I'm just quick like that, Sean.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. ComEd offers a wide variety of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes across the territory. And ComEd also offers a free facility assessment that can help find energy-saving opportunities, like for HVAC systems, commercial kitchen equipment, or industrial processes.
Sean, how does it work?
Well, you said you mentioned, I don't know, you said something about being quick. They're quick. An authorized engineer will work with you to develop a detailed assessment plan. I guess it's not that quick, it's detailed. If the White Sox were making it, it would be probably less detailed. A detailed assessment plan specific to your goals and needs. These can be done in person or virtually and last approximately 2 hours. And then within 3 to 4 weeks, customers will receive a report detailing energy efficiency projects that they could start working on immediately. And each recommendation will include estimated energy savings, cost savings, project costs, potential incentives, and simple payback. You own a business? Do not wait. Get started saving money and energy today. For energy saving tips, lighting incentives, or to schedule your free facility assessment, go to comed.com/poweringbiz.
Sean, did you say comed.com/poweringbiz?
I did, and I didn't even send you that line. So you just
I've seen one of these shows that do, yeah.
You've been paying attention. Yes, I did. Schedule it today at comed.com/poweringbiz. Also want to let you know about our friends over at DraftKings. New customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code CHGO when you sign up. Bet just $5 and score $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's code CHGO only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Tomorrow is a very big day. Tomorrow is the Home Run Derby, and Luis Robert Jr. is competing. So you know very well that tomorrow I'm hopefully going to wake up to a DraftKings boost on betting the Home Run Derby winner. And I, of course, am a homer and will be betting on homers from the guy from my hometown. Did I mention home enough in Luis Robert Jr.? So head over to DraftKings today if you do want to partake in the fun action, either for the Home Run Derby or for the All-Star Game. Luis Robert plus 500, 5-1 to win the home run derby as the number 1 seed. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Massachusetts, call 1-800-327-505 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700 on behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort. In West Virginia, gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. All games regulated by the West Virginia Lottery. Please play responsibly in partnership with Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See draftkings.com/sportsbook for details and specific state responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. 1 boost per eligible game. Opt-in required. Max bet is $50. 10 legs required for 100% boost. Eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.com. sportsbook.draftkings.com/baseball terms. All right. Let's get into something that's not Luis Robert related yet. Oscar Colas. We have seen him called up, and it seemed like it's been an odd 6 games for Oscar Colas. What's the report since he's come up since Charlotte? And obviously, he's gotten a little bit more playing opportunity recently.
He feels a lot better than he did the first time around. I think when he went down after a month, he was really kind of experiencing some of the mental challenges that come with making it to the major leagues. He said he was really anxious, trying to do too much, and obviously the plate discipline and the pitch selection, was noticeably problematic. So he went back down to Charlotte. You can tell by the results that things were going better from a plate discipline standpoint. But I think he got to work on some of that mental stuff, and he came back up here, and we talked to him yesterday, kind of like being like, "Oh, how you feeling after a few days back?" kind of thing. And he said he noticed a difference. He's noticed, that some of the stuff, that mental and emotional stuff, is not bothering him as much as it was before, and he's got it kind of a little bit more in check. So I think there's something to the whole, he came up, he figured out kind of what life was like in the majors a little bit, went down and used that experience to kind of work on what he needed to work on. And I wouldn't expect to see him go back down. From a playing time standpoint, it sounds like he's going to be playing mostly every day. Pedro said that he'll be getting him breaks, just like he would anybody else. And then we saw him the other day, obviously sitting for Zach Remillard, starting in the outfield. It really seems like Zach Remillard is going to be close to an everyday player for this team moving forward, just because Pedro really likes what he can do and was even complimentary of his game and the bunt element to it after what you saw here today in the 10th inning. So I think you're going to see plenty of Remillard, but I think you're going to see plenty of Colas too. And this is a guy who's obviously going to be part of the future planning here. So it makes sense that he would be able to come up and be given what Lucas Giolito described as kind of the opportunity to struggle if that needs to still be the case, or maybe you'll see him start to figure some things out.
Vinny, you mentioned Remillard. I mean, is there going to be a roster crunch coming up soon? Have we gotten any updates on Moncada when he comes back and plays third, when that might be, and as well as Garrett Crochet and Liam Hendricks?
The hope for Moncada is that he will start a rehab assignment shortly after the All-Star break. I think he'd probably be on one already if it wasn't for the All-Star break, but the All-Star break in the majors coincides with the All-Star break in the minors too, so there would have just been a gap there in which he wouldn't have been able to play. So what's the point in starting him, stopping him, and starting him up again? Yeah. They're going to get that going after the break. So that was the hope. That was the last update we got on Moncada. Crochet is currently on a rehab assignment, so I would imagine we'd see him fairly soon. In fact, and this is just some speculation, but we saw Nick Padilla be sent back down to AAA after today's game. So there is a free roster spot right now, and one that was caused by the departure of a bullpen pitcher. So there you go. Hendricks, now no real update on him, but in terms of Kopech and Clevenger, who are both on the IL as well, they are expected back shortly after the All-Star break. Kopech very soon. Kopech could maybe pitch even in that first or second series back from the All-Star break. Clevenger, maybe a little longer. They kind of need to still kind of see how he progresses on a daily basis.
He might need a rehab, right? Where Kopech is like, yeah, okay.
Kopech will not. Kopech will probably not, but you would assume with how long he has missed that Clevenger would likely need one, but we haven't heard that specifically yet.
Yep. And then final thing I wanted to bring up when we have Vinny here is the MLB draft is today. It's taking place at 6 p.m. On MLB Network and ESPN. It's just the first round today. Not only are the Cubs and Sox both in the top half, but they pick like basically right next to each other. Cubs at 13, Sox at 15. Obviously, we don't know anyone who's been picked yet. 15 picks down in the MLB draft. It could be anybody, but we did see last year they went with Noah Schultz, and he's been on fire. So anything on the draft that you've heard that you want to throw out, or is it just kind of see what the White Sox do? Because since Mike Shirley's taken over, it seems like they've had a little bit of a direction or more of a focused direction.
Sure, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to do that when the pick is as far down as you mentioned there. You know what I mean? I think we talked to Mike Shirley yesterday. He's the team's amateur scouting director. For those who aren't familiar with the name, but he basically said there's maybe 7 elite players in the draft that would go boom, boom, boom right off the board, and then after that, it's kind of a free for all. So, and then you got to remember too, this is a multi-round thing. This is not, they're going to walk away with a lot more players than just the number 1 pick, but that's the guy we focus on. It's the guy who will probably jump into the top 5, you would imagine, at the very least in their prospect rankings. And then, a guy who you would have eyes on as being the person with perhaps the most impact down the road. So you can look to the last 2 years and see that they've picked high school players, and Mike Shirley had a lot of good things to say about high school players yesterday, maybe whereas, you might look at some of the players they took previous, under the previous regime, or the previous scouting director, be that, Nick Madrigal or Andrew Vaughn kind of thing, and say, hey, that guy was touted at the time as being the best college hitter in that draft. So, if you want to split hairs on college or high school, I think the idea is that both have their value depending on the player. You maybe just don't see a blanket statement against one or the other. So this is going to be a much more interesting conversation tomorrow. Pre-draft conversations in baseball are not worth a whole hell of a lot unless you got a top, 5 pick maybe. This isn't the NBA or the NFL where the guy's going to be in the starting lineup the next year either. So it'll be more interesting, like I said, tomorrow after we have a guy and a position and something that and some experience that we can talk about.
Yeah, and you mentioned too, like, these guys aren't going to be, impact players right away unless you're like Mike Leake. But Noah Schultz has only pitched 12 innings in Low A Kannapolis so far, but he's only allowed 1 hit. He's got a 16-1 strikeout to walk ratio and a 68% strike rate. So, they can be entertaining. So, it could be it could be a very fun moment tonight around maybe 7:30 or so when the White Sox add another first rounder to their prospect pool. And I do just want to throw out to James Fox of Future Sox. Very fitting that he works there. Did tweet out a couple rumors. They may target a college hitter in round 1 and spend on pitching after. So that might be what you look out for. I don't think the Sox have drafted a hitter since Vaughn. So
Montgomery.
Colson Montgomery, yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. So they haven't drafted a college player since, or a college batter since Vaughn. So we'll see. We saw Madrigal and Vaughn be back-to-back picks as college hitters. So we will monitor that. All right, Vinny. Thank you for joining us. You had a doubleheader this week, so feel free to dip out early.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did cry.
Doubleheader and a rain delay. That was the tier. That was rain, tears. It was one of those. Yeah,
really.
Things.
You just don't want to.
Rain delay. I was trying to do tired. What's tired? Yawn. Oh, there we go.
We'll see you at 5 p.m. tomorrow to talk about that first round pick for the Chicago White Sox and to preview the home run derby as Luis Robert Jr. will be representing the White Sox. It should be fun. Thank you, Vinny, and make sure you follow Vinny on Twitter at Vinnie Duber. He's our CHGO White Sox beat writer, and check out allchgo.com where he has a piece about the White Sox new leadoff hitter in Zach Remillard until further notice, until Andrew Benintendi returns. So thank you, Vinny, for joining us, and drive home safe.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
See ya. Since you have all those graphics, Stephen, well, why not? We'll run through all the stock up, stock downs. So who's first? All right, we got Elvis Andres. You had this one. This one's clearly a stock up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, did you see that single he hit today? No, this is a stock down. This is a big stock down. At the time when they re-signed him, I remember the offseason, all White Sox fans were clamoring, hey, this guy was nearly the White Sox savior last season when they signed him. We want him back. Let's get him to play second base. Well, he's played second base, and it hasn't been great. Defensively, he's been adequate. Nothing more, nothing less. Offensively, this guy's a shell of what he was last season. The power's gone. The average is gone. He's getting outplayed by Zach Remillard. I think I don't need to say much more than that. He's really quickly losing a spot on this team. And I don't know how long he is for this team. Maybe if they trade TA, he's the shortstop.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, you say that he might not be long for this team, but if they're selling,
someone's got to play, right?
Someone's got to play.
No one's going to buy him,
like,
yeah.
Like, it's the thing is just like, who the hell is going to play, the middle infield for them?
Someone's got to eat it, right?
Like Lenine Sosa, like I'm fine with DFAing. This team sucks though. So, they're getting historically awful performance from their second baseman, Andrus included. Detroit, the Sox, and Royals are the bottom three at weighted runs created plus for second baseman, 55, 69, and 72. And Andrus has just been brutal. So I'm not thrilled with Elvis Andrus, but again, he's not the main reason why they're horrible.
They've never gotten production on a second base. So yeah, he's not the reason for 16 games.
They signed an old shortstop to be their second baseman. So it wasn't even really a plan. And then they were hoping that Romy Gonzalez could be that as well. But they were hoping Romy Gonzalez can be that as well, but he's struggling with injuries. So, I mean, just really hasn't been, a guy that could produce. Who else we got?
You want to do Yoan Moncada?
Yeah, let's do Yoan, just because you brought him up with Vinny. Yoan obviously struggling with injuries, but again, if we're looking at the reasons why this team is 16 games under 500, Tim Anderson, Yoan Moncada, Yasmani Grandal, and Eloy Jimenez are those players that I think stick out the most. And I know people are frustrated with Andrew Vaughn, and hey, he's not performing well. No one can deny that. And even Benintendi too, but those guys have been like average. Moncada has been missing again, and he was signed to be the third baseman, one of the most important positions. They were supposed to have that side of the infield locked down with Moncada and Anderson, and he is not only just a question mark, but a complete shell of himself. And it is sad to see. Clark saying, Yoan breaks my heart. It is truly frustrating to see. And no, we're not moving Moncada back to second because Moncada doesn't want to play second. This is just not an inspiring signing. This is a guy that is probably going to be best at third base, can't hit, can give you probably an elite glove at third base, but he's never healthy. It's an albatross of a contract. Like, I have no faith that he's going to turn it around. And that's just sad to see, because he was so fun to watch in 2019, and he was supposed to be the piece in that Chris Sale trade, and just has not delivered.
Yeah, agreed. I don't want to say he's the biggest reason this White Sox team has been bad, but he's probably been the worst contract they handed out. Like you mentioned it, I don't really have faith that he's going to turn it around. We'll never see 2019 Moncada again, and we're kind of stuck with this for a little bit now, and that salary is only going to get higher. We're kind of hamstrung by him at third base and his money that we're giving him.
Well, and hey, you mentioned, worst contract they gave out. I would push back. You know who my answer is.
Ben, yeah. Well, at least he's playing. We got to give him that.
Yeah? You played in the last 2 games?
Oh, that's 2 games. This has been 2 months for Moncada.
Benintendi out last 2 games. The Sox try to address wrist injury that's bothered him much of the season with extended recovery time, including All-Star break. That's from Vinnie Duber. And Pedro Grifol said Benintendi has played through pain most of the year. Oh. They signed a guy who broke his hamate bone last year, hamate bone last year, and it clearly has not fully healed. Is this not lemon law? Can we not? I mean, are we not protected by the government here? Like, this is brutal. And like, it's clear that he is injured because, again, 1 home run. We didn't think it'd be this bad. When I started saying he might have 3 in his White Sox career, I was being bitter. But oh my God, it might be true because he might have a broken wrist. He's saving him. I hope. That's what he's telling Brock Holt. But again, he hasn't hit a homer at home yet. Like, that was my whole thing. Sign a guy who you could take advantage of right field as a left-handed power hitter. And they signed this guy who's got a hurt wrist, a bum wrist, like up and down. There's nobody that you're just like, thank God exists, except Luis Robert Jr.
Want to go right into that?
Let's go right into that. Obviously, stock up. I mean, you hear Vinny say that he's a leader there. I mean, Robert's like the only I mean, you said you were good there. Probably the only great.
Yeah. He's past that. I mean, he's finally getting to that potential that we heard so much about, the 6-tool player and this massive home run hitter and a guy who's a threat to leave the park, and he's giving it bad against any player. We're seeing it this year. I mean, he's number one, what do you call it, rank in the home run derby. He's number one seed. I mean, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for a long time, and apparently all it took was some health, because this is also, he's on pace to play the most games he ever has. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. It's just health. I think, the more he sees pitches, the more he's able to actually acclimate himself to Major League Baseball, the more comfortable he's getting. And we see, I mean, even earlier today, I mean, he smokes another double. I mean, this guy is just a machine. He is so good in the outfield. He has that elite speed. He has that power. He has, an amazing contact skill as well. It's so fun to watch him just thrive as a Major League Baseball player. He now has his most doubles in his career. He had 22 in 2021. Now he's got 23, 26 home runs, 23 doubles. I mean, that's a superstar right there at the All-Star break. So Luis Robert Jr., thank you for existing. How many more we got?
3 or 4? No, we got more than that.
All right, let's go quick.
All right,
stock up, stock down.
I got to do mine here. This is my guy. This is Gregory
Santos.
Yeah, this is my guy. I've been on the bandwagon since before the season started. He is stock way, way up. He currently leads the White Sox bullpen in ERA after today, after Graveman didn't do so great. And, well, Santos does what he does. His ERA is now 2.76. That's awesome. No one really expected this much production out of him. No one really thought he could get the control down. Averaging 2 walks per 9 innings. Really good. Last season in the minor leagues, 5.5 walks per 9 innings. Really bad. He figured out the control. The stuff is great. Only maybe Joe Kelly has better stuff out of the pen, and his results aren't there. So Groot Santos, for me, he's been stock way, way up.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a tweet from Foolish Baseball recently about Gregory Santos and how they should be using him more in higher leverage situations. And we are seeing that. He's got a great ERA in those situations, 2.58 ERA, I guess, in those late game situations. And the usage in those high leverage situations rivals Jimmy Lambert. So I would definitely like to see that surpass Aaron Bummer. And I would like to see him be more of a guy, because again, he's young. I mean, that's the one thing is, I know that there's 16 games under 500, but the one thing that really hasn't been down is the pitching staff. Like, I know Cease was a stock down, and I think one other guy we got in here is Lance Lynn. He's a stock down, but also he's a guy that in the last 4 games has seemingly found it. And I think that, again, he's a guy that a team might talk themselves into trading for. And, I already hear you hitting the trade button, smacking it on the table. Feel free to flash the stock up, stock down for Lance Lynn. But there was a report today from USA Today from Bob Nightingale. The Texas Rangers have shown strong interest in White Sox veteran starter Lance Lynn, who struck out a franchise record for 16 batters and 11 batters in 2 of his last 4 starts. And then obviously goes into Lynn's contract. But Bob says teams who have inquired say the White Sox continue to have a high asking price for him. So one team that was rumored was Texas to want to reacquire him. But Bob also has a list. Top available starters: Marcus Stroman, Lucas Giolito, James Paxton, Jordan Montgomery, Jack Flaherty, Lance Lynn. So, I mean, those are in rankings. Sox have 2 of the 6 most intriguing starters.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a little bit of more intrigue with Lance Lynn. Obviously, he's been good in his last 4 starts, as you've mentioned. He's also controllable if a team chooses to. He has an $18.5 million club option for next season with a $1 million buyout. So if he does continue this turnaround, the team could opt to just keep him. He's a veteran presence. He's a guy with a ton of experience. He eats innings, and now he's striking out everybody. He's got I think the highest strikeout rate of his career right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like near 11.6, and we even shared that clip from the Clubhouse yesterday or a couple of days ago when he said he feels like he has the best stuff in his career. And we saw Lance or Johnny Cueto just dominate with the ability to go to any 5 pitch at that moment, and maybe just Lance needed a moment to settle in after World Baseball Classic, getting acclimated to the pitch clock. Past 4 games have been fantastic for Lance Lynn. So I do think that, again, teams need somebody to eat innings. They don't need a guy necessarily to be the ace. They need a person to get them to October and maybe their team's healthy. I mean, like the Dodgers have had 15 injuries to their starting pitchers. Like teams will always want starting pitching. We've talked about this when the podcast started back in 2022. Like that was the big thing, was the White Sox need more pitching. And, then Lance Lynn gets hurt. They end up getting Johnny Cueto. But I mean, teams will always want starting pitching. And even though Lynn's ERA is near 6, you compare him to, like Jordan Miles, he is way more effective at getting guys out. And I think that his fortunes can definitely change, because it just seems like he's finding it again. And he's a guy who knows how to hone it once he finds it. Any other guys we need to throw out there?
We got one more. I think this is it. And this is one of mine. This is Aaron Bummer. I know I talked to you ad nauseum about this just a few days ago. I said I'm done with the Tim Anderson experience. I'm also done with the Aaron Bummer experience. This guy was supposed to be a lefty specialist. I remember back in 2021, MLB Network's The Shredder ranked him as the number 8 relief pitcher in baseball. He is not anything near that. Let's see, his ERA now is 7.58. Ugh. He was supposed to be a lefty specialist. Lefties are batting 308 with an 822 OPS against him. Righties 247 with a 637 OPS. This guy's got reverse splits. He's not doing the job that he was brought in to do. And he's still getting ground balls, but they're finding holes.
Well, yeah, but how is that his fault? And also, too, like you look at him being a lefty specialist and you look at all these years, and I don't think there's a batting average higher than 231 in any of his years from 2019. What changed, Steven?
Defense has always been bad. I don't know.
The shift.
You think the
right?
shift is
I think it's possible that that's why you're seeing left-handers have more success against Aaron Bummer. I mean, I would just have to assume that, because a large portion of, I would assume, lefties hits off of Bummer just with his angle of pitch delivery. Guys are going to have to pull out to lefties, or at least going to have to pull out to try to hit that ball. So you would assume a lot more pulled balls against Aaron Bummer. And I just think maybe the shift is possibly made that more effective or made that less effective. I mean, I'm just trying to think. Like, I mean, no, I don't.
You're right. It didn't help, but the numbers aren't there.
All right, but like, how many games has Aaron Bummer been the reason? Like, how many? If you take Aaron Bummer off the team, how many games are under 500 are they?
Still a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, he's not delivering, but then again, like, he's got Elvis Andrus playing second base. I mean, he's got Andrew Vaughn playing first base. Like, that side of the infield is just not good defensively. So maybe that could also just be the thing too. Like, this team has always been horrible defensively, and we have not seen that improve. And we thought that would be something Pedro Grifol would be able to bring to the team. The ability to be prepared, the ability to play good defense, the ability to hustle. And we have not seen anything among that. I mean,
there was one more. It was Jake Berger. Speaking of defense, he was supposed to be the biggest liability defensively. How many errors do you think Jake Berger has this year?
Not many.
3.
Wow.
Like, I'm not saying he's a good defensive player all of a sudden, but man, I would have taken 3 in a heartbeat if you told me he was going to play as many games and innings as he has.
No, absolutely.
So,
I don't
think it's gone right. Yeah,
I 100% agree. Just because, he has come up and hit homers, and that's what he was supposed to do, and he hasn't been a reliability on defense. Like, if that Moncada hit has been so huge, and I feel like that blow has been lessened by Jake Berger completely.
I make an argument they're better off with Jake Berger right now.
I don't know about that.
Offensively, yeah.
A healthy Moncada.
19 homers. Yeah, Moncada ain't hitting 19 home runs if you played every game this first half. I'm serious. I will die on that hill.
You might be right. I'm not sure. But yeah, I just think that, Berger has just been a great piece, and I understand that he's been struggling recently, but you really do see a lot of hard work from that player, and he is a guy that has just continually tried to improve himself. And I think you see a guy struggle like that, and I think you're likely to see him improve. I just looked up Aaron Bummer's spray charts against left-handed hitters. I think I'm BSing about that, but it doesn't look like there's no hard hits. A couple doubles in there, but mainly some of them sneaking down the lines, which, hey, put them where they ain't. That's it for all the stock up, stock down.
That's it. We did it.
Can I give one more?
Give me one.
Okay. And I hate to do this, But Pedro sucks.
Yeah, I was ready for this. I didn't tell you I had this.
All right, I told you to be ready for this. I sent you this in the 7th when.
Yeah, I thought you were being facetious because of the questionable decision to bat Carlos Perez there.
What the hell was that?
I don't know either. Hey, you're the one that didn't want to talk about the game. I could go for a while about this.
What was that?
You use all 3 catchers in a 2 at bat sequence. You get Yasmani walks.
What?
And you pinch run Gavin Sheets, speedster Gavin Sheets, that is. And then Seby's supposed
you
to
take out
up.
Colas because there's a lefty on the mound. So you get Grandal, who's a righty, and then Grandal walks, and then Gavin Sheets is obviously faster than Grandal, so that makes sense. And then Gavin plays right.
Seby comes into bat. Nope. Carlos Perez gets lucky, hits a dribbler to third. Should have been the end of the inning. Nope. Boots it. Thank you. Tie game. And then he actually made a good defensive play, throwing out Paul DeYoung later on. But interesting decision there. I don't know why you're bringing up a guy from AAA to take a pinch hit for a guy that's been starting the majority of the games at catcher this year. I don't get that.
I don't either. And he's had 3 at bats since June 26th. Like,
one of those was a pinch hit RBI. I think it was a double, but that's a small sample size for me. Come on.
He hasn't played. He hasn't been good enough to get starts. And Seby's already had at bats. You're putting in a righty to face a lefty no matter what. What is the option? What are you gaining in that situation? I don't understand Pedro Grifol. He doesn't seem that smart. He doesn't seem like he has that much of an edge over his opponents. And we've always said that managers don't matter. And I think you're just seeing it. The players suck. And this guy looks like a clown because the players suck. And again, that's not the players' fault, I feel like. It's not really Pedro Grifol's fault. We know whose fault it is. It's the guys who are so disappointed in Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams. They put the team on the field. And the team that they've been given over $500 million to put on the field over the past 3 years has not delivered. Their organization has not delivered. And I mean, that's the biggest stock down. But we've known that. That's been known.
We didn't learn anything this season about that. We already knew. It's just the confirmation of what we already knew.
So
thanks for validating our thoughts.
Fun first half.
You did it. Yeah, we're happy here.
6 p.m. is when the draft starts. Our friends over at Future Sox will be doing a live show, Mike Rankin and James Fox. So make sure you go check that out. We won't be doing anything live, but we'll be monitoring social media. And if Mike Shirley or the Sox say anything about their first round pick, we will share that. And obviously we will share who the White Sox pick on social media at CHGO_White Sox. So make sure you follow us over there and we will keep you updated. We will have a show tomorrow at 5 p.m. where we'll talk about the first round draft pick and we'll talk about more of the later round selections for the Chicago White Sox. So we'll discuss about some of the new players joining the organization then. And tomorrow we have to preview the number 1 seeded Luis Robert being in the home run derby, the first player since Todd Frazier to represent the White Sox and the Southsiders in the home run derby. Very excited, and he might be the first player to win it in a White Sox uniform since Frank Thomas in 1994. So fingers crossed.
Profit boost on any MLB home run derby bet on DraftKings right now.
Right now?
Yeah, any bet, 50% boost. Take it.
And we already know it's at plus 500. So let's do it. That's going to be our bet. Like hey, there you go. Make sure you're checking out DraftKings Sportsbook and betting on Luis Robert, boosting that from plus 500 all the way up to
plus 750.
750. There you go. So hopefully we can have a Luis win, and we'll talk to you tomorrow to preview it with Herb Lawrence, Vinnie Duber, and myself, Sean Anderson, on the CHGO White Sox postgame show. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button on the way out. And thank you to Stephen Nicholas for joining me. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.